Hi everyone, my name is David Orlando. I'm going to go pretty quick with this project presentation because as soon as I start talking, 10 minutes goes by really quick. So to start off, my company's name is Global Health Insurance. You can see a change log for each unit that I made updates to this document on this next page. Moving on, everybody's got a table of contents, so I'll jump past that. So into the introduction, Unit 1's executive summary. My project is for integrating a machine learning tool in an existing environment. This is for machine learning assisted sales direction and insights and recommendations. And it's really meant to improve sales across the sales team and their insurance plans. This environment has a Cisco VoIP system, ServiceNow system, and Salesforce system already in place. So we want to use attributes for each of these systems to train the machine learning tool and drive continuous improvement from the insights it produces. So moving on to the purpose of this document, it really just goes over, it's a description of why this needs to happen rather than what's happening. So moving on to the business objectives, this section really gives a brief intro to the intent of the project, and then it dives into the exact end state of things that we need to accomplish. This is more abstract since it covers a business perspective, but it does go into detail as to what needs to be a capable goal of the project. So moving on to project objectives, this section gives more of a technical reflection to the business objectives, meaning the bullets are still goals, but they're more system functionality. The paragraph before the bullets is more of a description of a before and after system state based on the bulleted goals being accomplished. So for potential challenges, um, this section, I really kind of go over what new system risks that the overall project will introduce. And I briefly go over whether they might already be mitigated or we have to do a future mitigation. The bullets go into much more precise details, which the system evaluation will go into more detail later on. So moving on to the project team, I included several positions, both internal and new for this project. So this way it covers the existing people that are in the company that are going to have to help with the project and people we're going to have to hire to help us, really pilot it. This list shows all the positions and their respective tasks and their roles and what they're going to do for the project. So moving forward to Unit 2, the software methodology. This project is going to use a hybrid methodology. Specifically, it's going to use DSDM. This is because initial implementation is really going to have to be more waterfall. It needs to have all those connections and system additions done to a really good initial state before we start manipulating requirements and project goals and adding use cases and stuff like that. But the sustainment of the project and even the latter part of implementation will definitely be agile because it is a machine learning system and is going to change over time. The narrative describes this, and the bullets really justify it after the fact. Um, After this, I list a series of tools. I listed a bunch of them. And this is probably the first area of this document that can change over time because this is just an initial estimate and it just provides, the tools use and then the utility behind it. Moving to the next section. This is the business requirements. I first list 5 functional requirements, and then I list the non-functional requirements in more of a free form. I don't want to dive too much into these with this presentation, but you can see them here. They're categorized the way the template went, and they have specific elements to the system and what the requirements for what we eventually need to get to are. So then I'll move to the business process diagram, or at least the description first. I give almost a full page description for all of my diagrams. This is so everyone has a narrative for understanding. And this first one really goes over a logical path for the system's processes. This is also aligned with each team labeled at the top of this diagram. I mean, you can see the logical flow. And then also at the top, you can see the different labels of the different teams that are involved. And really, it has a little bit of if-then logic built into the diagram pending the situation or what use case we might be talking about. So next, for the project management timeline, I have an initial timeline here, and it gives more sections of tasks based on time periods because the project is hybrid. The first part of this is probably a bit more fixed because it's going to follow more a waterfall approach at first. And many of these tasks will move faster or slower due to changing requirements or additions of use cases. So for the use case diagram, I start with an intro narrative describing how the use case happens. The diagram below down here then shows the flow from person to system and to person, and from those perspectives, somewhat going left to right and showing the processes that happen between each entity. And that's really it for the use case diagram for this one. Moving on to the sequence diagram. The open narrative goes over why one thing happens after another, really kind of a sequence. And this also includes like what triggering events and the subsequent sequences that happen due to that trigger. The diagram below is split into kind of a top and a bottom, which the top is the normal flow of how the machine learning system will get input and data. And then the bottom shows the feedback loop of improvement that kind of starts with the sales rep and moves through all the tools. And it really indicates, their thumbs up, thumbs down based on the use case or the insights they get. Past that, we have the class diagram. This is where we really get into the technical of the system specifics and the different attributes that are involved. The narrative describes the classes and how they're related using, connected attributes. I also describe the relationships and the data flows between classes. Moving down, looking at the diagram itself, you can see the complexity of the system overall. While this diagram is very not mechanical but technical, I believe it in the business process diagram really show the best visual summaries of this system overall. So next for the data flow diagram. Really, this section is really focused on the exact data movement. This is very important to know in terms of chain of custody, in terms of the data, especially when you're handling insurance data, which might include PII and HIPAA protected information, along with other compliances. The legend gives a good summary of what you see in the diagram, but this diagram is probably one of the more simplistic. It's a layer one diagram. It really shows like the different systems, the entities, and then in this case, the data sources or data stores that are going on with the system. Moving on, I go into the data dictionary and I put a lot of effort into my data dictionaries because they're extremely helpful to develop initially and over time. They really help with scaling the project and the system itself and adding new components in. My narrative describes the dictionary and why there's duplicates that you'll see in a moment appear. The legend ensures that each dictionary column / field is explained. You can also see that my data dictionary right here covers just about a whole page, and it covers all the data sources from each entity, and that's why there's so many. So for the system evaluation, this next section, and we're almost done, this section could change based on some feedback. First, I set a brief criteria statement on how the system was evaluated. Next, I go through each required section, both the narrative and a scoring. Each section includes a description of the system's evaluated area. Next, there's like an assessment of each system area, which includes the score, because the assessments is where you're going to score it. And then for each section, there's also a solution area, which offers some predicted mitigations that we can put into place based on increased risk that the system has. I included solutions for several items, but I mainly focused on the high scoring sections of the evaluation. And you can easily see those because in this area, I included two diagrams that show the distribution of scores across the different elements that are scored or evaluated for the system. This is really just to show a visual for prioritization on where the solutions should really focus more on. I provided quite a bit of detail for this section, maybe too much for an initial document. And I get that much detail because this is where you leave your audience, you leave them with the evaluation over the system and what it's going to do. Lastly, I have a reference list, and this is pretty much every source that I used in developing this document. Includes course material and different references I found out on the internet to be able to support the project. But this concludes my presentation. I hope everybody could follow along, and I appreciate any feedback.